Thanks for joining, everyone. This is our November District Advisor webinar. Here's the schedule for today. We've got a shorter one today, but I'm busy with lots of stuff, so I'm okay with that. You can use the Q&A panel in Zoom to ask any questions, and we'll answer them as we go. Alrighty, so first off, today I'm going to start with my usual update just about what's going on with Advisor. Just a note, we do have a new data conference website here, which you can still, if you still use the URL we've been giving out, the data.events address, it will forward you over here where the communications team has rebuilt this, and all of the links and videos are working now. But otherwise, it looks exactly like the old one, so really not too much has changed here. As usual, I will get my slides posted here in the resources later. Maggie has some documents already posted here about rosters, and we will post a video of this session to this once we are done. Right. Flip over to my slides. So this is our November update. Starting off, just a few things about where we're at in 21-22. Some of this has not really changed. The certification status, I'm just again mentioning, we still have it up on the site. We've got just a few tests that we still need to finish, but we have made a lot of progress there. So the fall collection, that was closed on October 31st. The data was locked at that time, but we've been, as usual, working through late tickets and data change requests, and then we will finalize that data. So anyone who has one of those late requests, as we finish you out, then you'll see your locked reports change. This is something new that just came in the last couple of days from our English learner team. They've suggested that we should add Dari as a new language code, which is not already on the list provided by EdFi. So in case you're wondering, that's a dialect of Farsi. It's commonly spoken in Afghanistan. So I don't imagine a lot of districts would have reason to use it, but some do. I'm planning on making the code available this week, but you may need to contact your SIS vendor if you need to use it, since we're kind of adding this as we're already halfway through the year here. Depending on what SIS vendor you use, you may just need to like update your codes or your dictionary, or they may need to code something and send out an update. So that's why I would just say contact your vendor if you are interested in using that. This was, as I had mentioned last time, we are still working out how we may be doing some error validation errors related to the new transfer out exit codes. I haven't had any time to look at this since last month, so it's still listed here. We may update the systems involved student reporting document with some more guidance. And so we want to take some time before we turn on those errors. So perhaps in the next month, we will activate those. Anna was asking about the code number for Dari. No, I haven't created that yet. And I'm not sure if I will fit in with EdFi's codes, or I might like just pick 9999 or something like that. But I'll send an email out, Anna, when that is decided. Also other things still waiting to get set up in 21-22. There's a couple of course-based reports that just weren't that important for fall that we haven't had time to get to yet. So that is your career ed programs of study offered report and the new instructional units report. Both of those are based off the course data you send to us, course and teacher data, I should mention. And so probably within the next month, we'll be able to get to that. And as usual, if there's any changes you want to reports or anything new you want to see, we're always open to ideas. Just send us a ticket through our ticket system at advisorhelp@nebraskacloud.org. All right, just a couple of notes about the follow-up collection. So the follow-up collection for last year was what closed 10/2. We have been working through some graduation cohort change requests that came in so that we can get them reflected in the 2021 NEP. The 2021 NEP is scheduled to open to the public next week, next Wednesday. Generally, we don't want to make any changes to your grad or dropout rates once that goes to the public. Definitely, if you haven't already, you can go review that data in the NEP Secure now. Plus, I hope you've been reviewing your completers and your graduate data in advisor validation as well. But definitely NEP Secure is another place to go check it. So your grad rates and your dropout rates, as well as highly mobile students, that data is now available. We know some of these are unavoidable since we now have the earlier follow-up due date. There's, some people may be putting in enrollments of students that were enrolled before October 1st, but they didn't put in the record until after October 1st. So I think it's kind of unavoidable that we'll have a few more of these cohort requests than we usually do. But I still like the system we have with the follow-up being due earlier. I think I don't know about your side, but it's definitely easier for us to not double up with the amount of tickets and late requests that we are handling all at the same time. So, but there are some feedback and ideas we got from the follow-up collection process this year, and I believe these are 2 changes we will make next year. So this year, I waited to work through our late requests from the follow-up collection before, and late tickets. A lot of them aren't late requests, but the tickets that came in right before the end that we couldn't get to. We try to work through those before I went to update the 2020-2021 locked year-end data. And so once that locked data is updated, that's generally when we want to switch things that are pulling from that data to pulling from 2021 data in the new year to point to the locked data. That's the final official data. So at that point, we update the lookup reports. And then also in the new year, those errors that look at the prior year, such as 439, I think is you have a high school student who was enrolled last year who has not shown up this year, as well as the K-8 students who haven't shown up this year, special ed students who haven't shown up this year. There's a few more like that. We want to point those to the official lock data once we're able to. But that left us like a gap of like 10 days where you are in the fall window where you can't see the errors aren't pulling from the official lock data, and some people were still making changes to the 2021 data. So this year, next year, we will update the errors in the lookups to point to that lock data, to point to the new lock data as soon as possible after 10.2. So hopefully within like a day or two. And then as we make any late changes to the follow-up window, then we'll just continue to update that prior year-end lock data. Another idea we got was to take all of these cross-year errors, the errors that are running in this year but are looking at last year's data. We're going to put them into their own special category. That way, it'll make it very easy for you to know what errors you need to be looking at before 10.2. So generally, when you're working in the follow-up window, you're working in your prior year reports and your prior year errors, but definitely some of these errors that appear in the new year that are looking at the older data might be relevant to the prior year. So that way we can say, here's this one category, just pay attention to those before 10.2. All right, couple of notes about what we know about the CRDC. Some of this is still kind of up in the air. But what we do know is that the CRDC collection opens to districts and NDE on December 13th. I believe there's been communications that went out to districts or one contact from the district, I'm not sure who, about getting pre-registered for an account on the CRDC website. If you aren't familiar with that and want to know more, I would recommend going to this CRDC Grads 360 link. All this 360 stuff is the support site from the federal DOE. And specifically here, there's lots of data and resources, instructional videos on how to get registered. It says the pre-registration is closed at this point, but I imagine there's probably still a way to do it. So definitely that is where I'd recommend to go. And specifically, I saw this document that may be of interest to districts as well. So it's this one called EdFacts and the CRDC. If you didn't know, EdFacts is the system where NDE uploads district data to the feds, to the US DOE, which is technically unrelated to CRDC. We have data that we have to send up to the US DOE every year, and that's the system we use. But in this document, they talk a little bit about how they will be using that data. They basically use it in two different ways, they say here. There's some parts of the CRDC system where they check the number you upload, or well, the number that's in the CRDC system, and then they check against the same number in the EdFacts. They might trigger a little warning or flag that says the number doesn't match. You don't have to make the data match as it says, though. It's just there to let you know maybe it's wrong, but you can ignore it. Also, it says they will import some data through EdFacts. So as NDE, we've been talking about us sending data on your behalf. This is separate than that. It sounds like the data that's imported from EdFacts is probably automated by them for everyone. But I think any data that's ever imported into the CRDC, you can always overwrite with whatever number you want to submit. So they go into a little more detail about what those fields actually are if you go through that document. So definitely one I would recommend if you're looking for more data on the CRDC. We are still, NDE is still waiting to get into the CRDC's system. The kickoff meeting for SEAs, meaning state agencies like NDE, is actually happening next Tuesday. So we'll have a little more info about how we could submit data on your behalf, and when that'll happen. So I don't have the schedule about when that'll happen. I do know that any data we do submit on your behalf, you could still overwrite. And so I think we will have to use the Bolt, and probably will be our main way of communication as we get close to that December 13th open date. We should be able to send out some more info about that, how that process is going to work. So, yeah, EdFacts, Heather asked about EdFacts data. I don't believe you have any system that accesses it. I mean, certainly not directly. You don't have access to the system where NDE uploads that data. I don't know if there's other federal DOE data reporting sites that show that data. But all the data, you know, the data that is submitted is just all pulled from Advisor, as well as some of the other like CDC collections. And it really kind of covers a lot of different areas. There's, you know, there's like 60 different files we submit. I know a few districts have said they don't want NDE submitting any data on their behalf. I think we will just handle that through a ticket. So if you are one of those districts, please email us a ticket at advisorhelp@nebraskacloud.org. Just say that you are looking to opt out of CRDC submission. But like I said, that we can avoid submitting data to the system manually, but I still get the feeling that CRDC is going to pull the EdFacts data that they describe in this document, regardless of NDE taking any action. But like I said, yeah, send us a ticket if you're one of those districts, and I will get you down in our list. But like I said, you know, we're going to submit data, and any data we submit anyway can still be overwritten by you at the district. The district, whoever has access to the CRDC system at your district, will be the last person to finalize it and update it. Oh, how do we get the links? We will have this posted. We will have this posted on our data conference website soon here. But let me go ahead and drop some of these links into the chat. So if you're here now, you can go ahead and click on them. All right, so those are in the Zoom chat there. All right, that's all I really had to cover today. Next up, we'll go to Maggie to talk about rosters.
You've got one more question, Max.
Yep. If anyone has any other questions they want to ask, go ahead and pop them in the Q&A now. Missy said, can we opt out of submitting specific data points? Probably. Yeah, we should be able to do that. Just go ahead and specify that in the ticket. I believe, yeah, I believe we would end up submitting through multiple files, and so we may be able to just skip you on certain files. I'm just kind of guessing. Like I said, we are still waiting to get access to that system as well. There's the links, Greg, there. Cheryl, what link are you? Oh, the links in the chat. Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's because I'm sending them to hosts and panelists. There you go.
Okay. Max, could I ask you to unshare?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Yep, I'm not seeing any other questions, so thanks everyone. And now I'll hand it over to Maggie.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, you're good, Maggie.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Maggie Siss, and I am the program coordinator in the statewide assessment office. My major duty is to ensure the student data for assessment purposes is as accurate as possible. Basically, I am the hub between the districts, NDE, and our assessment vendors regarding all things data. Today, we're going to have a high overview of the NSCAS roster review process. As data stewards, you may be assisting your district's assessment coordinator, or as I refer to as DAX, in this review process. And I will go ahead and get through the presentation, and you can enter your questions in the Q&A, and I will review those at the end. Under the Nebraska State-Centered Assessment System, or NSCAS umbrella, are 3 summative assessments that all students grades 3 through 8 are expected to participate in each spring. There are 3 separate vendors and testing systems. Therefore, there are 3 different roster files that NDE sends to each vendor at the beginning of each January. The first one is NSCAS Growth. This is a new testing system this year, and it is replacing what we used to call the NSCAS General Assessment. And this is the assessment that most of your students will be participating in. We also have the NSCAS Alternate Assessment, and this is for the handful of students with the most significant cognitive disabilities in grades 3 through 8, or your 3rd year high school cohorts. The vendor for the alternate assessment is DRC, and their testing system is called Insight. The third one is the NSCAS ACT, and this is required for all of our 3rd year high school cohorts, unless they are taking the alternate assessment. And our vendor for the ACT is, of course, ACT, and their testing system is called Pearson Next, or we call it PA. You can often hear it called PA Next. NDE's ISS team has created assessment reports in advisor validation to assist all the districts to review your student rosters for accuracy on all of the NSCAS assessments. Once you've logged into the NDE portal and advisor validation, you can click on this verification reports, or click on the students under verification reports. And then you will click on the assessment tab here, and all of these reports will come up for you. The first one we'll talk about is the NSCAS growth roster. And then the second one is the NSCAS ACT alternate roster. When you click on the NSCAS ACT alternate roster report, you will be given an option of which roster you want to look at, either the alternate assessment or the ACT assessment. And then Once it is loaded, you can download the file and do with it what you want. Both reports do provide key student data elements that are needed to be reviewed for accuracy. Districts need to make data corrections within your SIS or SRS and publish these corrections to advisor. The roster reports are live during the review period, and so you can refer back to these reports to verify your corrections have been made. We've actually already gone through one roster review in October for the upcoming NSCAS Growth Winter Pilot. That testing window begins December 1st or 2nd, and so we've already gone through this once already with districts. I will be sending an email to the district DACs requesting another roster review for the spring testing on December 1st. The district deadline to complete this review will be January 10th, 2022. I will be sending a detailed email to the DACs, and that will include the step-by-step instructions that you have access to on that Naomi pointed out to you earlier in the meeting. And that these instructions, I probably will add a little bit more to it by December 1st. And so the DACs will have a new version in this email. During the review window, all districts will be requested to review their rosters for the alternate assessment and ACT. And then I will also ask them to review the NSCAS growth just to do a double check on it to make sure everything's okay. And I will say, I mean, I can't stress this enough. The more accurate the data now during this review, the less cleanup we have to do later. I was going to go over what is included in, or the student population for each assessment. For NSCAS growth, you will include all grades 3 through 8. Your full-time equivalency of 51% or higher. Any students less than or 50% or less are exempt from testing. And your alternate assessment field that is inside your student's SPED record needs to be coded as no. Also important for the NSCAS growth roster is your school of record and your school of membership. Those are very important when it comes to the testing system for the NSCAS growth. Your alternate assessment, again, all grades 3 through 8 and third year high school cohorts. This year, that would be a cohort of 2023. Again, your FTE must be 51% or higher. And this is the key for your alternate assessment students, is the alternate assessment field in their SPED record in advisor validation needs to be coded as yes. And then the third assessment is the NSCAS ACT. This includes all of your third year high school cohorts. So again, 2023. I will say, usually this is your juniors, your 11th graders, but not always. So how slow or fast a student earns credits does not affect their cohort. So please pay attention to the cohort year, not necessarily their grade level. Again, 51% FTE or higher, and the alternate assessments field should say no for your third year cohorts. And then I did want to touch base on your exempt homeschool students and your external program students. A lot of times these kids get overlooked. You want to view your exempt homeschool students. Their FTE may need to be adjusted or their enrollment may need to be updated. And if you have any students who are attending a Rule 18, an ESU school or program, or a contracted service agency, districts are still responsible to ensure that these kids get tested, and you will need, the district and the programs will need to be in direct contact to make arrangements for the testing that best meets the students' needs. And a lot of these programs will test on behalf of the districts. So, but I would definitely make contact with each of them. These are myself, and Iris Owens is our ACT on-site liaison. These, myself or Iris, are probably the best person to reach out to if you have any questions regarding your assessment data, student data. And I also included our statewide assessment general inquiry and our website. Our website has a ton of information, especially if you're still learning about the NSCAS growth. We have a web page just for NSCAS growth, and there's a ton of resources available for you. Oops, I'm sorry, I forgot to move the slide. There's the contacts. Okay. And do we have any questions?
Yep, there's a couple.
Okay.
One I answered earlier. Melissa was asking about she's having trouble getting the NSCAS growth roster to open. That is something that we will be looking at speeding up. It is a problem for large districts. So I think if the report runs quicker, then I believe you should be able to download it. But we will be testing that and trying to get that run better soon here.
For some reason, I can't get my Zoom back up.
I can
I'll
tell you what's on the list. Leah's asking, why should we submit a 205 for an exempt student? Shouldn't it be a 216? I can answer that question. Really, with exempt students, I believe the rule is we ask that you submit a 205 until the time where you can confirm the student has been approved as being exempt through that report that comes from our exempt office. And then at that time, you can change them to a 216, which is 216 is a transfer out to an exempt school. Right. Pavitra asked, for enrollment exit codes, we are no longer using 201. And actually, yeah, that's true. So yeah, Maggie, if you didn't know, the 201 code has been replaced by 5 separate codes, I believe, this year.
Oh, okay.
But all of the new codes essentially operate exactly like a 201 transfer out code. They're just more specific now.
Okay.
The 205 code, student not enrolled, eligible to return, nothing has changed about the 205.
Maggie, would you be able to go back a slide and show the contact list again? We had a request for that in the comments.
There you go.
Don asked, there's something mentioned about how to add teachers to see the results if they're not linked in PowerSchool. I
That's all done in the vendor's testing system. I'm assuming you're talking about the NSCAS growth. So the DAC can create accounts for users and then create groups within the NSCAS growth for those teachers.
And Melly asked, can you address the roster for NSCAS growth, writing and reading, loading for ELA at the elementary level, and some EL students are in their own class, please advise. So this would be all about the field called online group name that is part of the NSCAS growth roster. Maggie, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially that field is meant to automatically create those groups, kind of like you were just mentioning, within NWEA's system, I believe.
Yes, and those group names are created from course names that the districts have published to advisor. It's the course name plus the section number, correct? And then
Yep.
and then the instructor's last name. And those have been added to the roster file, and those are the groups that you will see within NSCAS growth.
And I believe we have changed it based on NWEA's feedback. Basically, we wanted all possible relevant elementary ELA and math courses to show there. So
Happen though until spring.
okay.
So what they see now is all that's going to be. Their NWA only took one load. So what's existing is it's not going to change unless the districts go in and make their own changes, which is very possible.
But based on the way some districts submit course data, you know, they may be submitting multiple 180000 course number, the self-contained classroom courses for elementary students. So if you're submitting multiple students, you might be seeing submitting multiple courses for a student. You may see multiples on the roster report on the advisor side, I believe. And I think the intention is that, and NWA doesn't know which course you're going to want to use as the online group name. So eventually we'll be sending them all of the options based on, like I said, with the elementary courses, and then any ELA subject courses or math subject courses. And presumably at the NWEA side, you may, I don't know, you can clean up probably some of those online group names that we send. I'm sure it's available to be edited.
It definitely is. And now a lot of districts, I wanted to point out that your students do not have to be in a group. Like previously years, you had to have your students assigned to a session. That is no longer the case. Groups are not used in the same manner as sessions. So as long as the student is in your system, you can test him. He doesn't necessarily have to be in a group.
Right, question from Greg. Last week, we were told students would be initially grouped according to math and reading teachers as described by their NDE course codes. Yeah, I believe that is what we're referring to. Of course,
Yes.
if you do have a student who has multiple math or multiple reading ELA courses, then you know we aren't going to pick one. We are going to offer all of them. Chris asked, if I understand correctly, we do not need to upload any roster or program reports to NWEA this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are options to basically the biggest one that for the winter pilot is you want to add your accommodations. And you can do that in bulk by downloading the file from NSCAS Growth, adding your accommodations, and then uploading the file back into NSCAS Growth.
And do they still have access to use a roster file upload, I think, with NWA? Or is this taking the place of that entirely?
I believe it's called a registration report, registration rather than roster.
Oh.
Take a look at that. And if it doesn't work, email me and I will verify how exactly it's done. I'm learning the new system right along with you guys. So I probably have the same questions you do, but I will find the answers.
There's a question about the system from Greg Rose. My question is, where do we see the assigned teachers on the NWEA reports that went live on November 8th? So I'm not familiar with those, but.
I'm sorry, say that again. Can you repeat that?
He's looking for the assigned teachers on the reports that went live this week on the NWEA side.
I am not positive. I'm not sure I understand the question. So if you can reach out to me directly, that would be great. And I will put you in the hands of the right person. Or you can call NWA directly. I should have put their customer service on here.
So yeah, and then later Greg was asking about the online group names. So it's kind of confusing. So online group name is a string of text that is meant to like identify a group of students. And one of the things in that online group name is the teacher's last name. But I don't know if there's also a separate teacher field that is in the NWEA website.
Oh, okay.
So just to be clear, just about the language, well, we know that on the NWEA side, as we've said, there is staff fields in there, like when you can assign staff to a group of students and have them get access.
When you're looking in the testing online test management screen dashboard in NSCAS Growth, there are some filters at the top, so you can look at specifically ELA versus math. There is a search button, and this is a question that I have already out to NWEA, and I have not gotten an answer back. If you can use a wild card, like the little asterisk, type in the instructor's last name with an asterisk. NWEA has not answered me on that question yet. So I don't know if you can use a wild card, but certainly attempt and you can answer faster.
Melissa asked about the NSCAS roster, presumably the growth roster and the language field that's being pulled and assigning Spanish tests.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the language field in the NSCAS growth roster is the dominant language. Technically, that's if you look to our documentation, as well as in any of our English learner reports, dominant language is the type of language use that NDE pulls for any accountability reporting. So presumably that means those students have Spanish as their dominant language being reported.
And that can also be adjusted in NSCAS Growth. If you don't want them to take the Spanish version, you can change it to English or vice versa.
Sandy asked, forgive my confusion, I was given instructions on uploading NSCAS Growth winter pilot accommodations. Are you saying this isn't necessary or this is a completely different thing?
No, it is necessary.
And it is different than the roster or the registrations. So
Yes.
The accommodations is a separate list. which is not something that we are submitting automatically. Ryan asked, are we comparing last school year's rosters at this time? I'm not sure what you would mean, or Brianna, sorry. Are we comparing last school year's rosters? I'm not sure of any use for last year's rosters. Melissa said this is not something that's been done before, but I don't know what you are referring to. So Melissa, if you can submit another one. Sorry, I'm just going in order that they came, so we're a little behind. Don was asking about reading specialists. So yeah, okay, that was about who could get access in NWEA. Are we uploading separate rosters for NSCAS growth or not uploading?
The state is sending a weekly update roster to NWEA, starting actually today. Every Thursday by close of business, we'll be sending a roster update throughout the winter pilot testing. The districts do not have to submit a roster file themselves.
Melanie said that she was told they can't set up groups until December 20th. I'm assuming
It can
NWEA.
manually set up groups, but the bulk version will not be available until that date.
Melanie was saying in her case with the online group name, the same teacher may have 4 classes, say 12 and 13, one being a reading class and another a writing class. How can they be put together?
You'd have to change the group name.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any way we would know when to combine those classes automatically on our side. But it can be updated in the NWEA side. And as so if a district has students not tied to a teacher through courses, a district will have to create the teacher an account and group the teacher with the students.
If the teacher, go ahead.
Oh, this may be talking about 2 different things. So the teacher data through the course is creating the online group name, but does that even with an online group name created, that doesn't automatically give the teacher access to the student?
Correct.
Or does it?
Okay. The instructors will need to have an account.
So, and that, yeah, that's separate from the online group name thing. That's just kind of a, I assume just a grouping of the students that are already in the system.
Your instructors will need user accounts in NSCAS or CAP in order to gain access to it and to these groups.
Right. And how often are the student rosters updated in NSCAS? Students or rosters updated in NSCAS, and what was part of the one-time update that was loaded to NSCAS?
For the organizations?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That may have been what you were saying.
The latest organization update went up to NWEA on November 1st, and that includes all of your district and school information.
But as far as the roster updates?
Roster updates will be sent up weekly, not daily. They'll be sending up weekly. The first one's going up today because of Veterans Day, but normally it'll be sent up every Thursday by close of business. NWEA will take Friday to process those weekly updates, and everything will be available to the districts by Saturday morning. Or for sure by Mondays.
April, just confirming for students in 3rd through 8th grade, we do not need to upload the data for the winter pilot or spring testing in NWA.
No, it should already be there for you. Now, if you have any changes, so if you have any new students that come in and you don't want to wait for the weekly update, you can manually add them, or you can wait for the next weekly update to check to make sure that they're in the system for testing.
Millie asks, please advise about the rostering of online group names. This won't happen until spring. I believe it's already happening.
We've pulled one ELA and one math group for the winter pilot. And the suggestion of pulling all the courses into the file, that won't start happening until spring.
Oh.
Unless something changes between, when after running the winter pilot and we discover, a whole new way of doing things for the course group names, then we're open to suggestions. That's how I was going to close the meeting. Was keep in mind it is a pilot. NWA will be sending out surveys, and so we definitely want to hear from the districts on what they thought of the pilot. Any suggestions that you have to make improvements on how the processes are run, any quirks in the system that need to be improved. We are looking for all feedback after the pilot, and that will, if they can implement changes for the spring pilot or for the spring operational, they will definitely work on getting that done.
Ruth asked, in a few meetings that she's been a part of, people have mentioned creating cohort groups for teachers who need access to student scores but do not have them in a class. How do we create those?
That's where you create new groups in NSCAS growth.
She may be referring to us also building that out on the advisor side, where we now offer a student cohort group that was designed to be fed to NWEA for that. However, NWEA has not set up that connection yet. So that's still kind of a future feature for NWEA, their developers. So I'd say probably don't worry about that right now, as far as creating those cohort groups on the advisor side. Cohort in this case just meaning a group of students, not a graduation cohort. Greg asked, which file do we download from NSCAS growth? Where in NSCAS growth does the upload occur? So the NSCAS growth report on advisor validation, it's just for review, but I don't believe you're supposed to download it and then upload it into NWEA's website. We essentially are doing that data upload.
And Greg did mention in comments that he'd give Maggie a call, so he might have some more specific questions for her.
Yes, please. Greg has a lot of questions, and I definitely want to touch base with him.
Melanie was referring to something earlier about the operational report, or somewhere else to find the ACC bulk upload file. I am not familiar with those files.
Did you say ACT?
ACC. Well, it says ACC.
Oh, accommodations, ACC.
Okay, yeah.
Accommodations. I'll be honest with you. I still don't have access to the new testing system, and so I don't know exactly where it is housed. But if you call the NWEA's customer service, they can walk you through on finding it and downloading it.
Or stated another way, I guess Chris has asked, where do we find the NSCAS growth download file to add accommodations?
Yeah, that's it within NSCAS growth.
Okay. So that,
And-
that basically you would download the file from NWA and then add the accommodations and upload it back.
It is within the assessment coordinator manual that's available on the NWEA and Nebraska portal. I wasn't prepared for all of these specific NSCAS growth questions. So please send me an email and I can send you access to all of the resources that provide you the instructions on how to find these.
I was actually thinking, Maggie, with all the questions, which I love seeing this feedback from everybody, that maybe there's the potential that we can capture all of these in a format after the webinar, and then potentially email everybody who's registered with some of that feedback information. So that's a possibility we'll explore, just to give everyone a little heads up there, because I think that that's going to be really useful for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. There's a couple that we should cover. Here's a good one, actually, really. Next one from Anna. So the rostering we do for the NWEA map is not used for NSCAS growth. Is that correct?
Correct.
I did get some more details about the language. Apparently, Infinite Campus is maybe not sending the dominant language correctly. So OPS is getting many students assigned a Spanish test when they didn't mean to.
And I know NWA is working directly with OPS on finding a resolution for this.
I also, yeah, got an email from Michelle at CIC support today. So I'm trying to help her work through that. Let's see. Some of those off. Yeah, let's see. A couple of these, I don't believe we would be able to answer. They're more NWA questions. Melanie was asked, how do you know to add reading or writing? What rules that following? Essentially, we're looking at the subject area of the courses. So when it comes to the online group name, you are submitting students. They're in a course that has a state course code, and those are, categorized by ELA and math. Pabitra said, I'm confused about SPED. FTE needs to be higher than 51% to code alt assessment to yes. I believe you're misreading that. Slide. And Maggie, if you want to go back to the, it's probably the slide with the alternate assessment roster requirements. Yeah, you went back. So basically each of these are all the requirements to get on the alternate assessment.
So if you have an alternate assessment student, the key to recognizing that in Advisor is that the alternate assessment field in the SPED record in Advisor validation needs to be coded as yes.
And separately, the FTE also has to be 51% or higher. So,
and yeah, actually the FTE of 51% or higher falls for all the assessments. That's the same criteria for all three assessments. All students with a FTE of 51% or higher are expected to participate in one of the three assessments.
So yeah, if you have a part-time SPED student who, so their FTE is less than 50%, then it doesn't matter whether you list them as alternate or not. They are not going to take any statewide assessment.
FTE is a very common error made, or not necessarily an error, but FTE is a very, very common adjustment that needs to be made.
Amanda also was talking about the language. If the EL students have their home language, well, technically it's dominant language. That's the field we collect that we're forwarding on to NWEA. So if your student is marked as a dominant language of Spanish, then yeah, we do forward. We do automatically set them so that they are marked as the Spanish test. So I'm not sure if that's a case where their home language might be different than their dominant language, or if maybe that's just going to be some feedback we get from everyone about using the dominant language. Just so you know, like the dominant language is also used for accountability in that, like, you know, if we see an English learner student, we flag them if their dominant language is English, for example. It's used in several other places with English learners. This, you may know the answer to this one. April asked, our 3rd and 4th grade classes will take the testing pilot this winter, as well as NWEA growth for science and math. So it sounds like they're doing some extra testing, or a different, I'm not sure if we're talking about a different pilot there.
There's no science testing for the winter pilot. It's only ELA or math.
All right. Yeah, I'm not sure then what you may be referring to, April, but the winter pilot NWEA growth is for ELA and math, and basically everyone's included in that.
Requirements for the schools did change on Friday. We were originally asking all the districts to participate in and test their students either in ELA or math. But districts are more than welcome to test in both. The samples, we did decrease. On Friday, Jeremy announced that we are actually, there's only sample schools that are required to participate. And Jeremy, Trudy, and myself sent out emails on Monday morning regarding what is required for testing. If you did not receive one of those emails, then your district is not required to participate in the winter pilot. But if you already have solid plans, I highly encourage you to move forward with those plans, because the more we have testing the pilot, the better data we're going to have to make improvements.
I'm seeing a lot of other questions that are just related to the NWEA's website and how that works.
Okay.
I think we'll skip those. Here's a new one.
The DACs, all of your district DACs have access to all of the resources regarding NSCAS growth. You can call NWA's customer service directly for any specific questions, maneuvering around the new testing system. And if you have any further questions, feel free to give me a shout.
One more answer from Daniel. When calculating FTE for, as we're talking about on this slide, that is the student's general education FTE or time spent in school, not necessarily service time indicated on IEPs, correct? Yes, you are correct. the FTE here is their enrolled FTE at your district. That's a general FTE. That's not the service time. That's part of the IEP, basically. So yeah, and specifically, we're talking about the full-time equivalency that's part of the student enrollment record and advisor, which is an FTE that all students have filled out, not just SPED students. Okay.
Any further questions regarding the roster files in advisor validation?
And I will say we did, I got word that I'm going to be able to collect everybody's email and the participant list for today's webinar and capture the Q&A. So we'll be able to do a follow-up document, I think, that'll really help answer any outstanding questions that anybody has. And then we'll get that posted to the webinar website and then also emailed out to everybody once we get answers for all the questions. So I just know that we're getting close to quarter till, and I don't think we were forecasted to be that long. So I want to be cognizant of everybody's time today.
Answering one more question about FTE, but you can go ahead and stop sharing, Maggie.
You know, it won't, that bar is missing. I can't see questions, chat, or how to or not
should
share.
Should be a little bar, like a green and black bar somewhere around the edge.
It's gone. That's why I had you read the questions, because that little bar is missing from my Zoom window.
Let's see here.
I think I'll go ahead and sign off. Maybe that will fix it.
Yeah, I was going to say that
Well,
might
sure.
be a good idea, Maggie. And we did get a comment. I like this idea, recommendation for another follow-up Zoom for more participant question answer. Maggie, I think your topic is important and valuable to our districts. And so I think that's something that we should discuss and maybe make available to them so we can include that in our follow-up.
It's actually already in the process. Every Friday at 12:30, we are having an NSCAS growth touch base. I would reach out to your district DAC, and they have access to that link. So your district DAC will be able to share that out with everyone that would like to set in on those touch bases. That is weekly, every Friday at 12:30. Love
it. Fantastic. Great resource. We'll include that information in the Q&A as well. I think that'll be good.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
If everyone wants to stick around just a little bit longer as Maggie logs off here, we just have a couple closing notes. And I am loving all the feedback and questions we're getting. And it's making me think that you guys are the best target audience to help us determine topics for future webinars. So here's Max is displaying kind of a closing screen for us, but we aren't going to have a webinar in December. Give everybody a little holiday break. We're all quite busy during that time of year, but we're going to be coming back in 2022. And I would love your feedback on topics, potential ideas, timely to maybe every month. So if that's something that you can submit a ticket to us, if you have some ideas for that, it would be welcome. And you can send those to advisor help at nebraskacloud.org. I don't have that on that slide here, but we will get today's recordings up on the webinar website, where you can also register for the 2022 sessions once we have those things nailed out as well. Anything else I'm missing, Max?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, we'll continue to do the registration through the website here. Like I said, you could use the old URL or the new one that's listed on screen. And I think we'll still have you register for each one individually. So We will send out a bulletin once the new one, I don't know when it'll take place necessarily, but whenever we have the next one, we will definitely send out a bulletin announcing it and letting everyone know where they can go to sign up. All right, I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.